Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us once again. Today, I'm really excited and delighted to be joined by Dan Nelson, who runs Nelson Schmidt in Milwaukee in the US. Hey, Dan, how you doing?
Excellent. Great to be here and great to be part of the mission group.
Well, thank you very much, and it's good to have you with us. Nellie, we could just get something out of the way to start with. You and I have known each other for a good few years, and throughout the interview, I'll be referring to you as Nellie, but of course, your name is Dan Nelson. So how did the whole Nellie thing come about? Because it's an interesting story, I believe.
Absolutely. Nellie is my nickname. Everybody uses it, so everybody please feel free to do so. But as my full name, Dan Nelson Jr., working with my father, having two Dans in the agency was difficult. And actually, Nellie was a nickname that I adopted or was probably given more than anything many, many years ago when I was a child. Don Nelson came to Milwaukee to coach the Bucks, our NBA franchise, and everybody called him Nelly. And about that same time, I was tired of Danny as the name I was being used by with my family and friends, and suddenly Nelly stuck, and it's been the case ever since.
I think it's great. It's great. Um, it's certainly better than the nicknames that I was usually called, but that's beside the point. Nelson Schmidt, the agency is a bit like Bray Leno in many respects, insofar as it's 50 years old, I believe. So how did it all get started?
Yeah, so 1971 was our year of founding by a gentleman named Ken Schmidt, originally called the Ken Schmidt Company. Was originally a very agriculture and heavy industry manufacturing focused agency. Spent a number of years in that space up to 1988 when my father actually acquired the agency from Ken Schmidt, having never worked in an agency, but was on the client side in a marketing role, varying levels of responsibility and seniority, up to vice president sales and marketing for a large tractor manufacturing company, Allis-Chalmers, that was headquartered here in Milwaukee at the time. And fundamentally, I think he just was looking for something entrepreneurial, get out of a large corporate environment. My dad and Ken and I are all from Nebraska originally, but when Dan Sr. and Ken got together in 1988, Ken actually had an offer in hand from Carmichael Lynch in Minneapolis to sell his agency. He and my dad were close. Ken asked if my dad would get together for lunch. He wasn't totally confident in the deal terms that he was seeing from Carmichael Lynch and wanted to just talk to my dad about it as a trusted, peer here in the market.
Yeah.
And long story short, by the end of the conversation, my dad had agreed that, yeah, those aren't that great of deal terms. Would you take a second offer? And Ken agreed. And, shortly thereafter, my dad actually acquired the agency. Carmichael Lynch still doesn't have a Milwaukee office as a result. But, and then, they kept moving forward in that same space, agriculture and heavy industry. My father, having been in the, big equipment manufacturing marketing roles that he had, knew what the customer experience needed to feel like, but didn't have the agency background that Ken did. So they were a great partnership.
Cool, what story. And the agency itself is based in Milwaukee, which for those of us perhaps who are lacking in US geography, you're quite close to Chicago.
Yep, 90 minutes north of Chicago, simple train ride, right in the middle of the country. So really easy to get to both coasts and the south, really conveniently centrally located.
Yeah, it's a lovely town as well. I remember when we were out there with the team in the summer, right on the lake. So you've got everything really, city and countryside around you. Who could want more?
Yeah, indeed. And most people don't realize that, Lake Michigan, one of our great lakes here in the United States, is effectively an ocean. I mean, it is, more than 100 miles wide. You can't see across it. So it feels very much like an inland sea, but being fresh water has a lot of advantages.
Yeah, sounds good. So the agency's up and running. How did you get involved in all of it?
Yeah, so I joined the firm in 1995 and took over as president in about the year 2010, and then acquired the agency from my father in 2012. But I actually started on the account management side. Having come to the agency and back to Milwaukee from the San Francisco Bay Area, I went out there for university at Stanford, did my master's degree, and then started my career out there on the creative side. I was a photographer, commercial photographer, and had a photography and design studio in the South of Market District in San Francisco for about 5 years. And I was basically looking to make a change after having spent 10 years in the Northern California area. Loved it. It's a wonderful place, to be, move from a child to an adult in my early adult years and get my career started. But 10 years in California was plenty for me. I didn't really know exactly what I was going to be doing. My lease at my studio was up, and I actually came home just to vacation for the 4th of July Independence Day holiday here in the United States that summer, and was playing golf with my father. And he kind of out of nowhere just was curious to know if I was ever interested in coming back to Milwaukee to work for the agency. And I shared with him that, boy, that's an interesting question, one I hadn't contemplated. I actually was thinking I was going to be moving up the West Coast, maybe to Portland, Oregon, or maybe Seattle. So I love the West Coast, but just was tired of all the bullshit in California. But he threw the idea out there. I thought it was interesting. It was good timing. A couple of unexpected little nuances to it, though, that were really probably the most important. One was that he suggest might be a gentle term, demand might be too significant of a term, but strongly recommended that I would start in account management as my first job inside of the agency, knowing that, I liked creative. I was, fairly good at it. And that I could always go back to it. But he just suggested that it would probably be beneficial to me to round out my skills and my experience by spending time, at least some time, in account management. And by the way, cut that ponytail and, get rid of that West Coast look here in the Midwest, which was fine. I didn't mind. But I agreed, but I had one condition on him, and that was I'll try account management. No problem there. But we're going to start investing in this thing called the internet back in the mid 90s, which was very early for the Midwest, at least here. It was not in the Bay Area. A lot of the work I was doing in San Francisco was already being used digitally. I was shooting with digital camera backs. A lot of the work I was doing is going to the early versions of websites, more brochureware and content than anything, not a lot of application and functionality. But having been a programmer all through high school and university, I knew that the internet was going to become a massive game changer to marketing. And that was a significant advantage for us when I brought that capability, and we built a standalone separate digital agency in addition to running accounts for Nelson Schmidt.
That must have been it was a lifestyle change for sure to come from the West Coast to the Midwest, but you must have found from a business point of view that was a significant change. I mean, you mentioned that you were setting up a digital agency, but within the business itself, but that must have been quite an interesting experience, should we say, at that time.
Yeah, growing up as a child here in the Midwest, I mean, I think the culture, the people, the society, the social mores and norms here are very much my nature. Like I said, I love the West Coast. Don't get me wrong. The Bay Area was wonderful. It's beautiful. It's stunning, but it's awfully easy to vacation there and visit. It is not very, easy and convenient to live there.
Yeah. Okay. So you're now in the agency. It's up and running. You're now running. What sort of areas of what were the areas of focus that the business has? I mean, you mentioned that it started very much as a sort of agricultural business and agricultural marketing, but I know you've moved away from that and you do all sorts of other things now, predominantly focused around the B2B space.
Yeah, we still have our roots and DNA firmly planted in business to business marketing, certainly. But I was focused on consumer marketing at the start of my career. And over time at Nelson Schmidt, we've evolved our focus to not just remain true to our roots in B2B marketing, but what we call considered purchase marketing. Highly considered purchases, whether they be B2B or B2C, is our area of focus, as opposed to impulse buys. The definition of a considered purchase is the degree of financial and or emotional, risk or reward to the buyer. And what we found when I moved back here and we started to add some, highly considered purchase category clients to the agency, life insurance and higher education, for example. And, early 2000s, we were starting to use customer journey mapping and so on. What we found is that the customer journey for a highly considered purchase is not all that distinct, regardless of it being a B2B or a B2C category, product or service. The media sources that people use, the places they go for information, the distribution outlets they're using to purchase the product are very distinct by the product or service, certainly. But the way people go about making the decisions is very similar, regardless of a B2B or a B2C purchase. If you're purchasing on behalf of your company or if you're purchasing on behalf of yourself or your family. My background in school was biology and psychology. So the science of decision making has always fascinated me. And now some of the more modern tools that we use to parse out how marketing can intersect and influence purchase decisions, like customer journey mapping and so on. It was remarkable. It was the aha moment for us when we laid these journeys out and realized that the upfront research, the peer reviews or now online social reviews, the interaction with the distribution partners. Most often, a highly considered purchase involves purchasing the product or service not directly from the brand, but also often from some distribution partner, whether that's a dealer, a distributor, a VAR, a value-added reseller, and consumer electronics goods. Those high-value purchases that have significant consequence to the buyer often aren't directly from the brand. I mean, that's changed a little bit with regard to online and e-commerce, but there is still very often an intermediary between the buyer and the brand. Many times there are a lot of decision makers. It is often a fairly protracted purchase decision. It's not an instantaneous impulse type of buy. But we found that our full service approach, which is, we're a full service agency, has a tremendous ability to intersect with those different decision points that people make on those journeys, regardless if it's B2B or B2C. So while we're never going to, hide from or leave behind our B2B roots and are still very, deep and active in the B2B space, we've added on several consumer categories of expertise, financial services, and so on, that our services are still just as relevant for as they are in a B2B setting.
Yeah, and as I understand it, of course, I mean, your client base as well is pretty international, isn't it, for the sort of work that you're doing? Because you adopted this philosophy across, as you say, B2B and B2C, so it's allowed you to take that internationally as well.
Yeah, the vast majority of our customers, not all, but the vast majority of our customers have international operations. Our target clients are very large organizations in considered purchase categories, like I mentioned, whether it's manufacturing, agriculture of our history, or more modern clients in financial services, higher education, economic development, and so on. But almost all of them have an international component. That's why, frankly, that we were keen to become part of the Mission Group in terms of collaboratively servicing our clients using independent agencies. One of our brand pillars is global marketing management. And our philosophy is that the independent agency network is a better solution for global marketers than the two options that they've historically had. One being go to your publicly traded, international holding company and work with those offices internationally, regardless if those offices have the category experience that you happen to be in as a marketer, or the discipline expertise that is going to solve the marketing challenges in that region. But that was one of the options that clients have had. The other option is for them to go and hire agencies regionally and allow their regional business units to select their own marketing agency partners, but then they are required to become the integrator of those efforts. And oftentimes what you see is the brand travels in different directions in Europe because the customer base is different than the Americas, which is different than APAC or what have you. But the client's responsible for being the integrator there, and that doesn't always work because the regional business units have a P&L they're responsible for producing and delivering to the company. and they will often go in their own direction from a marketing perspective to meet the needs of their regional business. The alternative is using an independent agency network, now a proven concept. We've had many clients that have used independent agencies that we've chosen, and choice is the power word there, that we go and seek out the best solutions for our marketing clients to satisfy their needs regionally in market. Again, be that category experience or be that discipline expertise, because not all markets, have the same marketing needs. So, media advertising is going to be helpful in some cases, but maybe it's public relations or certainly interactive services, direct marketing, and others that might be slightly nuanced in each region. But the key there is still having the ability to maintain control with the lead agency, whether that's us as a North American client going globally, or we're finding more and more, these days, international brands seeking to penetrate the United States, where we're now a regional agency supporting them as the lead global agency.
Yeah, and certainly that's as you sort of mentioned already, that you joined us as an affiliate, and this is part of the interest, that sort of duality of where the client comes in from, whether it's one that's leading from the States or whether it's coming in to the States via the mission or one of the other partners, and the ability to be able to curate a network that is not only controlled from the top down for a client, so they don't have to worry about it, but also uses resources which are the best that can be offered to the client and deliver what's required. I mean, it's a model that, of course, we're both very keen on, and I think we can talk about this, but we're trying to put that to the test at the moment, aren't we? With a particular opportunity that just sort of serendipitously landed in our, well, that it landed in our laps, but came up when we were talking, the team and I were over there with you a couple of months ago.
Yeah, indeed, we have a really interesting opportunity, a significant opportunity. It's public. It's a government contract, and I know that RFP is let, so I can share it with the group here. It's the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Seaway Development Corporation, which is a public-private quasi-governmental entity whose mission is to promote both cargo and cruise traffic through the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Seaway, which is the waterway, the maritime transportation route that connects the Atlantic Ocean to the Great Lakes, which is a very significant and important commerce route for the middle part of the United States to export products internationally, and for international companies or international importers to the United States to be able to access the central part of the United States. As we always do when we're looking for the right opportunities to pursue from a new business perspective, we call it what's our unfair competitive advantage. And in this case, the current and new executive director of the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Seaway Development Corporation is a former client of ours here at Nelson Schmidt, who ran Port Milwaukee for many years. He was promoted or appointed to the United States Department of Transportation role, running the St. Lawrence Seaway from the United States side. There's also a Canadian counterpart, but he's got the duties to do the promotion for the United States. They've issued an RFP, a global RFP, very significant opportunity, full service requirement. And serendipitously, while you and the team were here, came to learn just the extraordinary amount of experience that Bray Leno specifically, but also Wake Media and some of the other Mission Group partners have in maritime marketing, which is a perfect marriage for ours. We've got a lot of experience. I mentioned Port Milwaukee, but we also do a lot of economic development work here in the state of Wisconsin and locally, and exporting and international trade is a big part of that. So we are very versed in the maritime advantages that we share and have here to reach international markets. So our RFP was submitted just a couple of weeks ago. We will be hopefully notified here in another couple of weeks of any finalist round, or hopefully, knock on wood, that we've been appointed to business. I don't know if they'll be that aggressive, but it was, again, a perfect example of the ability for us to go choose the best solution for a global marketer, in this case, those with deep maritime experience. And it just happened to be very good luck and maybe good fortune that The Bray Leno team, while we were talking about it, we uncovered it just after having received the RFP that they had a tremendous capability, and a big part of promoting traffic through the Seaway will be reaching international shippers and cruise operators.
There we go. Fingers crossed on that one. Yeah, and we'll see where that works out. But of course, we're sincerely hoping this is the start, because I say Nelson Schmidt has joined as a mission affiliate, which makes you our go-to in your part of the world. So we're looking to expand the to and the fro, backwards and forwards, and look for those opportunities collectively. So yeah, hopefully this will be the start of many things for the both of us, and across the broader network. So. I'm very conscious of the time, Nelly, and I know we could probably talk, and we will talk all day if we're given the opportunity to. But I just wanted to sort of round out by basically saying, you know, as our mission affiliate there, obviously anybody watching this from the agencies within the group, or indeed the broader partnership, if they wanted to reach out to Nelson Schmidt, learn more, or indeed perhaps even visit you if they're in the area, how should they go about doing that? Contact you directly, or what would be the best thing?
They certainly can. I mean, go to our website, nelsonschmidt.com. And there is a contact form there that would come into our Chief Marketing Officer, John Bowler, who is responsible for all of our business development. He has a team that supports, you know, responding to RFPs, agency promotion, and so on. But feel free to reach out to me as well, nelie@n-s.com. Nellie@n-s.com is my direct email address. But you can also find the phone number on our website. Certainly start with me, and, you know, we can uncover whatever opportunity or need you might have that we would be able to help you with, and I can assemble the proper party and team members from Nelson Schmidt to surround that opportunity based on whatever that requirement might look like.
Perfect. Well, it's been great talking to you, Nelly. Thank you so much for your time, and we're fingers crossed for St. Lawrence Seaway, and looking forward to doing many great things with you guys.
Thanks so much, and look forward to working with and meeting the rest of the Mission Group partners.